Cool. So, hello guys, I'm David Bradley, aka Schizophreniforms, and I'm here with my good friend Mr. Gordon Vader.
Hello!
And the main topic is ADHD, but before we sort of
And
launch...
ADD.
And ADD as well, which are distinct diagnoses, I gather. Yeah. So, before we do that though, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do for a living and...
I know I'm Gordon. I'm a professional chancer, basically. I do whatever I can.
You do writing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Writing. I'm currently a writer.
The
reason we're here, I've just been officially diagnosed as an adult with ADHD or ADD. I think it's ADHD.
Yeah, but you yet to have confirmation of that.
Yeah, so I'll go back next week for the formal. But I have been diagnosed and I'm waiting medication.
Cool. Okay. Would you mind sharing what that is, or do you want to...
I don't actually know yet entirely. You know better than me because you understand the drugs of these things.
Yeah.
And we have some literature as well.
I know that they're loosely amphetamine based, so they'd be quite stimulating to a certain extent.
I think they have the opposite effect for people with ADHD.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So yeah, they have the opposite effect.
But
in terms of
which we will come to actually later on, so that's a good point. But so yeah, basically, what is, as far as you are aware of it, to begin the actual topic, ADHD and ADD? What are those things? Because I've got a description I can read here. But
we'll read the description now.
Okay, so it's basically, according to the Royal College of Psychiatrists, it's ADHD is a pattern of problems which are usually picked up in childhood. Parents and teachers notice overactivity, an unusual amount, easily distracted and impulsive, and difficulty concentrating. Sometimes, in some cases, like perhaps in your own case, these things aren't picked up until adulthood, or at least not diagnosed.
I hid mine. That's very important. Very, very important. I hid mine. I had a friend who was, a slow learner to school, and I watched him as he was mercilessly bullied,
Sure,
and I watched it destroy his life. So I learned very quickly to hide my condition.
And to sort of overcompensate for it, I guess.
Just to hide it. I hid it. So, and then later on in life it became more and more apparent. I mean, I thought I was dyslexic for years.
Yeah.
And I probably have an element of that. But
Sure.
mainly, ADD is caused... patterns is very important because it was patterns that
Patterns of behaviour.
That covered it in the end.
Yeah. Okay, so is this something... Actually, that's quite a good point. Was this something that you noticed and then looked for a description, or did you have this forced on you in a certain way?
We always knew that something wasn't right. My mum knew, my dad. We always sort of knew something wasn't right. And I hid it really well. I really hid it quite well. And you learn to cope with it. You develop coping mechanisms throughout your life to make it easier. Yeah. But more importantly, you said to look for. It sort of came to light when I met somebody with ADHD, and then they were like, "Ka-ching, you are off the charts." And I was like, "Oh, no, And then I went to college again after went back to college. It was actually when I was 40.
Yeah.
And I did a test there, and that was, and again the score was off the charts.
Yeah.
So that was an indication, a very big indication. Yeah. And from that, I was lucky enough to be taken seriously because it's very hard to diagnose. In fact, my previous doctor, the one I have now, told me it was impossible.
Yeah.
To be diagnosed as an
I gather it's quite difficult to get a diagnosis, especially because of how they treat it as well.
Yeah. So it's hard to diagnosis, but it can be done. So don't believe it can't.
Yeah.
I'm proof.
And even if it takes you
it'll take it 40
a long
years.
time. Eventually, if you ask for that help, it's available.
Yeah. Sort of thing. You need to be persistent and demand second opinions where necessary.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, so there was light. There was light in the tunnel.
Cool. And I'll get you to elaborate a bit more on that sort of thing at the end of the video.
Yeah.
So the next topic we've kind of gone into a little bit is like, so for example, how does it affect you personally in a positive way? What are the upsides to it?
Insanely creative. I've always been insanely creative, and people with ADD or ADHD tend to have an almost instinctual entrepreneurial flair.
Sure.
And a lot of the big, a lot of the really famous entrepreneurs have ADD. Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, Steve Jobs, the dude from IKEA. There's loads of them. They have.
Do you think that hyperfocus might have a role in that?
Hyperfocus is a period where you can basically kick your brain into gear for short periods of time, or not for short periods, but for periods of time.
And
so
it's-
you can
and it's
just
distinct from just like it's almost the antithesis of what the rest of the illness is.
yeah. It is literally you've got
It's like you almost burn out because
you can do pretty much anything if you put your mind to it. You can just, but you have to get into that frame of mind, and it's not easy.
yeah. But it is characteristic of the illness as well.
And to
So
put it in
that-
perspective, I wrote an 80,000 word book in 6 days.
Okay.
6 days. That would take a normal writer a year.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, a year.
And if you don't mind me asking, I'm assuming it was quite good quality work as well. Because
Yeah, it didn't need
because-
much. I mean, it was a lot of stream of consciousness and did a lot of editing. But yeah,
Yeah.
one day I'm gonna hopefully finish it and get published. But that was just stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
6 days.
Because quite often when I write, it's very much a stream of consciousness sort of thing. Like, I mean, all of this, it's my own. Obviously, it's not comparable. But what I mean is, I think
everything's
that
comparable.
good quality writing comes when it is edited and processed. But initially, the actual base work is that.
So you have to be. You
That
have
sort of
to
thing,
have
that
something. You
constant
can't polish as they say a proverbial.
Yeah. So then, what are some of the negative impacts you've had?
I can't help wondering. I think anyone who's been in the same situation, I can't help wondering how much easier my life would have been had I A, not had it, or B, been diagnosed earlier.
Yeah, and had
Because
that
it's not-
treatment earlier in
It's
life.
not been all roses. There's been struggles.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Not about sympathy, but
No, but we're trying to get an open. It's an open-minded, both sides of it. So if you're willing to talk about it,
I mean, I remember looking back through now that I've been diagnosed and seen the diagnosis and seeing some of the patterns that lead to our diagnosis, some of the things you do. I was once belted at school, literally belted at school by a teacher because I had ADHD.
Yeah.
But one of
to
the
try
key
and-
things you do is you interrupt people. Can't help it.
And they get, I suppose, like back in that era of school, there wasn't quite the stricter ruling. And
Yeah, back in those days there was no ADD, there was no dyslexia, there was no Asperger's, there was no spectrum.
people weren't really
You were
aware
smart
of
or
it,
you were an
right?
idiot.
Yeah.
That's literally that.
And they didn't know how to manage that.
So I hid it. I hid it so that people wouldn't think I was an idiot.
Sure. Yeah. And that, I suppose, that leads on to another couple of questions. But are there any other negatives that people might, or like symptomatic things that might indicate that you could point out for?
It can be hard to hold relationships down because you're scatty and you forget things. I mean, I forget so.
And that
this
can
week,
be not just intimate relationships as well, but
Yeah. This week alone, I've locked my car keys in my car. Lost 2 bank cards. You just lose things. I can't put things down. It's a really weird thing. It's really nasty. It's another thing that just looking back as like an epiphany moment. That's why. Really weird. I can't just carry on holding. I can't put it down. I don't know why. So what I normally do is I give it to somebody.
So
I put it down, or I just carry it around. You just find myself carrying things.
I have
It's
noticed
really
that
weird.
behaviour actually. Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know why it is. Things like that. It's just mad.
And is there an element of OCD to that, or is it
I don't
more
think
just
so. I think it must have been something I've done to sort
like a
of
coping
a
mechanism?
couple of things. Maybe something to
Because
start
if someone else puts it down, for example, that means that they know where it is and they've
Maybe.
tracked the location of it.
That's not a bad idea. It's not
to
bad.
to
That's not
transfer
bad.
that.
And also
quickly
keeping on
onto
to it means you've always got it.
Yeah. So you always
By
know
not
where
putting
it
it
is.
down, you're not losing it.
Yeah. So that might be an interesting
Yeah,
explanation.
I think we just
Figure something
we
out
just
there.
we just worked something out there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you develop coping mechanisms. Memory is another one. Right, weird one. I have an insane memory. My memory's off the charts sometimes. I can remember. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I can remember the girlfriend's parents' Wi-Fi code.
Sure. Yeah.
Memorise it.
Yeah.
Though it's not really used to anybody, but.
But yeah,
remember
it's
it.
just like incredible memory retention in
Yeah,
general.
and I did that because when I was hiding my illness, when I was hiding the condition I had, when I was younger, one of the things you do is the only time it would really be a problem was reading.
Sure.
That was the only problem. I could keep myself in check most of the time, but reading out loud was an issue. So
Okay.
what I'd do is when we read out loud in English class,
I think I might know where you're going with this.
they'd figure out, the teacher would start at one end of the room and they'd go paragraph by paragraph by paragraph. And I'd work out, I was in the middle, and I'd work out how far along I was, and I'd memorise my paragraph.
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
But he sort of blah blah blah. So when it got to me, I could basically blurt it out.
And so rather than actually having to read it and directly speak it, you'd already memorised it.
Yeah.
So that's actually quite an interesting coping mechanism.
It helps.
using the skills you've got to compensate. I was going to ask you about this as well, actually, because I find with myself, like, my lack of ability to cognise body language and behaviour and emotional responses and stuff actually has given rise to me overcompensating and being extremely good at that thing to compensate for the fact that I'm not very good at it, which brings me back to a normal level and gives me the appearance of normalcy or being normative. But to me, it's still a huge effort.
Normative word.
Sorry?
The normative word.
Normative is a word, but I didn't necessarily use it correctly then.
Right. I'm not your mum, it's fine.
No. Feel free to not only look up the word, but then use it yourself and feel really clever.
What's the day? Sponsored by Sesame Street is normative.
Yeah.
Right, go on. Yeah.
So the next question is, how does it impact? So I was going to ask work and relationships, but primarily work. Like how have you managed to sustain work, and B, what are the struggles associated with that?
I've always been creative. I've been working in creative roles, which are sadly not always the most well-paid roles. Not that it matters, but I've almost always created my own role rather than go for a job. I've gone to, so you need something to do this.
It's a very like self-employed or self-oriented work.
Always, you know.
And you find that's helped? Yeah.
Got to do well, and I mean I have had that normal jobs, and there has been positive and negative aspects of both.
Sure.
I might often be late, but then I was a team leader for a long time. 5 years as a team leader.
Yeah.
I was a great team leader because staff were really motivated.
Was that at the place where I met you?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good at that.
Yeah.
The staff were always very happy and it was very functional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't actually before that. Anyway,
Okay.
Just
Okay.
you were talking
And what I was going to say, so like for me, for example, normal work, like run-of-the-mill jobs, I really struggle with because of social interaction issues and nervousness in general, and obviously hallucinations and things like that.
Yeah.
So similarly, I can relate to that in that self-oriented work can help you navigate a mental health issue because you're your own boss, you're choosing what you're doing with your time, and then you can regulate your own progress.
I agree.
But that also requires a much more commitment and dedication to actually make that a successful thing as well. So there's challenges on both sides, like you were saying. Really.
I agree.
Cool. And then, so how or in what way have you treated the symptoms? So you talked about coping mechanisms, but then these are the things that's what I want to come back to.
One of the reasons I sought diagnosis, apart from my friend pointing out, teaching you the day, was my habits. People with ADHD tend to be quite addictive and tend to lead to addiction issues. I am pretty much addicted to fizzy carbonated drinks with caffeine, taurine, and sugar. Any of those three things tend to be, but they have the opposite effect on me. They calm me down.
I have not. Yeah.
So it should even kill, which I should have noticed when I was younger. I should have noticed, these things having the opposite effect, but I didn't. Just enjoyed them. Don't drink tea or coffee. I smoked for many years as well, but I've stopped. I stopped that now. And if you're struggling with smoking, Champix is the answer.
Unless you have
unless you're already on antidepressants, because it is an antidepressant. So
or in my case with antipsychotics, I can't necessarily use the full amount of it, so it wouldn't be very effective.
But it worked for me.
Because it affects your dopamine and serotonin response, especially serotonin. Yeah, but it can work.
Yeah, it really worked for me. I didn't even want to give up.
I think I remember when you were going through it.
I was always nightmare during the time. Anyway, so stopped smoking. Smoked for 20 years. I'm addicted. I'll drink 3 to 5 of these a day every day.
And it helps you focus.
And caffeine drinks as well, so things like Coke.
Because that was one thing I was going to point out in here is like in this description from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, they mentioned that the most medications, aside from like psychotherapy, the most main treatment medication-wise is things that are stimulants and often related to amphetamines, which caffeine has a similar dopaminergic reward trigger. So in a weird way, you've been treating yourself with that. Yeah,
clearly been self-medicating with this for years. I always go, well, as soon as I sort of suspected it, I sort of knew it, I think. And I've suspected it for about 5 years.
Sure, Have you found that the more you've learned about the illness, the more you start to see characteristics of yourself?
Oh, totally. And even when I was first, when my friend first said that, I thought, maybe I didn't really see it, because I wasn't like her, you know, because she was at a different sort of level.
Yeah.
And she was self-medicating with speed, which is what she did.
Which is amphetamines. Again.
I didn't really understand it. But then later on, after the college, when that really tricked it in, and then it was like, the series of epiphanies later.
Yeah.
It just makes a lot of sense. So seek diagnosis when you're young.
Yeah, as soon as you can, once you've identified it, and even if it doesn't turn out to be what you think it is, at least approaching the fact that there's a problem or a difficulty can help you overcome that and get a diagnosis of whatever it may be. But especially if you think it might be ADHD, the earlier the better. Oh,
small dog.
That's Captain.
But I think that's everything.
Oh yeah, that's probably good. All I wanted was, other than that, was just like a last note. But I think we kind of covered that anyway.
I think basically, remember, it can be diagnosed even as an adult, even though they might tell you it can't be. My doctor literally took me straight in the face and told me it was impossible. It is possible. Don't settle for it less. If you are considering, if you think you might have ADD or ADHD, speak to somebody. They may ask you to speak to somebody who knew you when you were young, like a childhood friend or a sibling.
I gather that's quite common actually. Yeah. They go through family history and
but you should build. There's a lot of online tests. Take a few online tests. Be absolutely honest with yourself. Lock yourself in a room and no one's watching. Take some online tests, and if your scores are off the charts, go see your doctor.
And even if you're having problematic issues similar, discussing those with the doctor might help identify a different issue, or it might prove that you're not, that you don't have that.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And 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 if you've come this far, you've developed coping strategies, and your life will be unique. Which.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. So, I think that's pretty good. Thanks, bro.
You're right, bro.
Appreciate that.
All right.
Right, say goodbye to the internet.
Bye, internet.
Bye-bye.